Okay, a couple of weeks ago, I was on a webinar and talking about my experiences, and there were numerous questions, and we didn't have time to answer them. And so Matthew, who set up the webinar, has asked me to answer do some follow-up questions and answers. And one of them, the latest one, is prior to meeting the company that you were about to lead, what were your expectations of your future tubes? How did these change when they heard what their expectations of you were, in that they thought you wanted to go and fight and gain medals? Phil who asked that question is referring to when I took over B Company 2 Mercian out in Afghanistan in 2007, and they had already been out there for 3 to 4 months of heavy fighting, and I was arriving as a newcomer. I hadn't been out to Afghan before, and I was taking over a company of soldiers that I'd never met, and they hadn't met me. And one of the first things that the new company sergeant, or the company sergeant major that I was introduced to, one of the first things he said to me was, "Sir, the soldiers don't want you here." Okay, well, that's a good start. That's quite a hard question, particularly as it was so long ago. Rather than me try and answer it, that one of my senior NCOs to answer it, to give his perspective. So I'd like to introduce Daniel Fitzgerald. So Daniel is a well-experienced soldier, senior NCO, with 4 operational tours to Northern Ireland, 2 operational tours to Bosnia, and 3 operational tours to Afghanistan. And it was in the 2007 tour that Daniel was awarded a mentioned in dispatches.
From Gresh, we pushed down into what we call the green zone. Okay, and we were tasked to occupy the area called Rahim Calais. Now, unfortunately, it was our first casualty of that period of the war, where we lost Lance Corporal Sanford on the morning of the assault. From there, then we re-pushed in, and it was basically trench warfare. We finally actually managed to take the village and the town itself.
That was one of the remarkable things that I never expected when we actually got out there, is that green zone. And so the green zone is an area probably which straddles along the Helmand River, which cuts through Helmand Province, and on either side of it, probably about it's 500 to 700 meters on both sides of the river. Then is this very fertile ground, because there's lots of irrigation canals which were built by the Americans, I think, back in the 50s or 60s, and so there were a lot of crops, and one of the main crops was corn. And so actually in the summer, corn grows well above head height.
Yes, so from there then we were experiencing day-to-day fighting. We also, at night time, the enemy force would push and obviously try and basically break into the compound that we were in. Having the guys on the roofs at night time throwing grenades at the enemy, so that's how close it was.
Okay.
Toe stuff.
So you'd been out then in Afghan for, by this time, about 3 or 4 months?
March, May, June. Yeah, about that. Yeah.
So about 3 months, and I know that you had actually been on quite a number of operations prior to the capture of Rahim Calais,
yes.
And now you're fighting daily as a company, and then you get the news, or you're told then you've got a new person coming in to take over command. So how did you feel about that?
So yes, we had the news. Obviously, Major Butt was moving on, which was quite peculiar, because obviously mid-tour, you're looking now, you don't really think that your OC will then obviously go in, and a new guy coming in. So for us, having a new OC come in, yes, it was quite worrying. So with operations, especially with headshed, so like the COs, the commanding officers, the OCs, they want to get the teeth stuck in, and they want to make a name for themselves and for the regiment. Now, that's what we was worried about, because at that stage we're fighting hard, but we are tired up until then, because it is constantly day in, day out fighting.
I remember Jace Peach, the company sergeant major, saying something similar to what you've just said, which is actually the guys were worried about me wanting to come in, change things, try and win a medal, try and make a name for myself straight away, and he also mentioned actually that the guys were tired. And he said they were starting to become a bit scared, particularly because Lance Corporal Sanford had been killed the week before, and that was the first death in the company, the first major injury in the company. So were the guys becoming scared? Some of them.
Yes, times where we had to go out because at one stage we were taking that much incoming into the compound. It was just getting very serious. So what I'm trying to get to, there was the stage then when, before we were going on patrol, I had young private soldiers. And these guys obviously just 18 years old, first ever tour, and what a tour to be thrown into, a baptism of fire. And they were doing the job, but mentally it was so tiring for them and they were breaking down.
After the company sergeant major Jace Peach said, "Look, the guys they're scared and they're worried about you coming in," I would have introduced myself to everyone as soon as I could anyway. But I thought it was very important for me to explain my thinking and my rationale, and about how I was going to approach the next, I think, 5 months that we had left of the operational tour. And so, can you remember anything about that?
So, at one stage we thought, God, there's a new OC in, he's going to be wanting this because he wants to make a name for himself. The turning point, well, not the turning point, sorry. The first time then we properly, the company and my platoon was properly introduced was obviously the operation in mid-August. So visibility that day, 5 metres, 10 metres, because obviously again the cornfields.
Because of the cornfields and all the vegetation, and
yes.
Okay.
So up into that stage as well, anything to the front was enemy. Now Gray was on point, so he was the first man. He then, I think it was 5 metres or probably close. Enemy let him basically walk on top of him, and they opened up. He was hit possibly 5 times. Just about the cornfield, the lads behind him couldn't see what was going off. That's called Buchanan. So Buey went forward. So obviously he heard Graham screaming, and the enemy soldier that just shot him was just about to obviously execute Graham. So he was basically nearly enough standing over him, ready to obviously finish him off. Buey then shot this guy, grabbed old Graham, and obviously then dragged him back to safety. From there, then, that's when I looked over my shoulder and saw you there.
Okay.
Which, at that stage, I never thought, obviously, well, what the hell is the OC doing this far forward? Obviously, where the point of contact is at the moment. Yeah. So, a few choice words. Can we get the OC out of here? Push back, okay, and then we're actually going to start bounding backwards. From there, though, this is where we said obviously the 360 battle, and we did start getting incoming from the left and right. So Jack, by this time, they'd already linked up with Jace. Obviously, the company sergeant major and the evacuation of Private Graham was getting underway. It was this point then you start hearing obviously the blokes going, "My God, did you see the OC?" And I think that's when. Not the tide had changed, but the guys had realised actually he's the type of company commander that will send you into the lion's den, okay, but he won't be looking from the gods. He will actually be shoulder to shoulder with you, which is that's for me. That's when the
okay
change.
And how important is that? Do you think that that leaders need to be willing to go forward, willing to get down and dirty with the guys?
Yeah, 100%. So thinking back to our early days in battalion when we had one of our old COs, and you'd be on exercise, the next minute he'd be there digging in with you. Number one, it's that for morale, and it's number two that the officers actually care about the blokes.